hair research, and today I'm supposed to lecture on how to learn trichoscopy in just 7 minutes. So I'm not going to go through all of the trichoscopic features because we don't have time, but I'm going to offer you an approach to this diagnostic technique, especially for beginners. So let's start from the very beginning. So in the beginning, there was darkness. And then trichoscopy was created. And we saw it was good. But then we started to accumulate knowledge, and I can say that we have like dozens of papers coming out every year with new trichoscopic features, with new names. And when we open the books, we find lists of names. There are lists of trichoscopic features for each one of the different hair disorders. So, lists are very good for reference, but not for diagnosing patients. So should we memorize all of these lists, all of these names? And of course the answer is no. So in order to understand trichoscopy, to learn trichoscopy, it is very important to understand the mechanism of the disease, how it works and how it is going to affect the hair follicle and the hair shaft. So for example, in trichotillomania, we all know that patients, they are pulling the hair. And of course the hair shafts, they are going to break. So what's the major trichoscopic feature in trichotillomania? Broken hairs. But depending on the way the hair shaft breaks, depending on the shape it acquires, we are going to have a special name for each one of the shapes. But in order to make the diagnosis of trichotillomania, we don't have to know all of these names by heart. We need much more than that. We need to look at these hair shafts and know that they are broken hairs. And like that, we can make the diagnosis of trichotillomania. A very important step to understand trichoscopy is to know that through the dermatoscope, we are looking at a three-dimensional structure, which is our skin, in just 2 dimensions. So in this way, all of the perifollicular and follicular changes, they're going to be perceived as dots. So a couple of examples. If hair shafts, they break very close to the scalp, they're going to be perceived from above as black dots, like we can see in alopecia areata or in trichotillomania, for example. If we have a hair follicle, an empty hair follicle that becomes filled with sebum, we are going to perceive from above through our dermatoscope as yellow dots, like we can see in alopecia areata or in monogenetic alopecia. And it's very important to make the link with pathology because most of our trichoscopic features, they have good correlation with pathology. So, for example, when we look at this picture, you can see that the inflammatory process in lichen planopilaris, it's mainly folliculocentric in pathology. So we expect to have most of our trichoscopic features with a perifollicular pattern of distribution on the scalp. So if we look at this picture here, you can see that scaling, which is a sign of disease activity, is mainly concentrated around the hair shafts. On the other hand, in discoid lupus, we have inflammation around the hair follicles, but also in the skin in between the hair follicles, in the interfollicular epidermis. So in trichoscopy, we can see that scaling is present around the hair shafts, but also in the skin in between the hair shafts. And one of the most important information today in this lecture is that you have to consider the context in which you find your trichoscopic feature. So, for example, just to illustrate, we have this picture from the internet. So when you see this picture, you have an information and you have an idea of what's going on. But that's just part of the picture. When you see the whole picture, you have new information and you have a different idea of what might be happening here. And it's the same thing in trichoscopy. a single tricoscopic feature will not give you the diagnosis. It's important to consider the combination of tricoscopic features that you see in your patient and take into consideration, of course, the clinical presentation, the clinical information that the patient is presenting to you. And this way you can establish a diagnosis. So let's have a look here at a single tricoscopic feature, which are black dots. If you have black dots along with exclamation mark hairs in a young child with patchy alopecia presenting with a positive pull test, what is the diagnosis here? It's alopecia areata. But if you have only few black dots along the hairline with loss of vellus hair in a postmenopausal woman, diagnosis is completely different. It is frontal fibrosing alopecia. And finally, if you have black dots along follicular pustules in a young man presenting with inflammatory nodules and purulent discharge, diagnosis is dissecting cellulitis. So what are my take-home messages from this brief introduction? Well, in order to learn trichoscopy, do not memorize all these lists. They are very useful for reference, but we have to understand what's happening in the disease, how it works, in order to understand our trichoscopic features and make a diagnosis. The most important, a trichoscopic feature alone will not give you the diagnosis. It's important to look at the bigger picture. Thank you.